Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
What is Islam? Is it Jewish? Or is it made by Muhammad? What are the origins? What's the background of the Quran? Was it written by a man in the Hijaz in Arabia? Or was it written by Jews in Babylon? What is the Sunnah? Is it the stories of a real man? Or are they heavily influenced by Jewish understanding? Is the Quran from Allah or from the rabbis? In this series, we're going to tackle what is the true origins of Islam. Welcome to the Talmudic Dilemma. This video is not going to be monetized, so let's talk about virgins. So specifically, we're going to be going through, this is the last video in the series on paradise and how Muhammad stole from the rabbis for basically everything. Right now, we're just focusing in on the paradise passages. So in those passages, we get a lot of interesting things that we've already shown, and it's just a one-for-one ripoff of the Rabbinic position. Now, I do need to clarify something from my first video in this series, that the Christians and church fathers were also talking about how heaven was the Garden of Eden, how the Garden of Eden was spiritualized and shown that, okay, it's not a earthly garden, but there's a heavenly garden. The Talmud also talks about how there's an earthly garden and a heavenly garden. So they had the clear distinction, because they actually knew the material, that there was an earthly garden and a heavenly garden. Now, Islam doesn't have that. It's all just the heavenly garden. But the idea of a heavenly Garden of Eden itself is not explicitly rabbinic. It's also Christian. It's also an apocryphal writing. It is loosely attested to in the Bible. There's 3 times it's mentioned in the New Testament, mostly by Paul. It's in Revelations, it's in 2 Corinthians, and it's in another place. Anyway, the idea of paradise, paradisio, comes from the Persian of the same name, and it literally just means garden, or specifically a walled off area, so like a fenced off area. And they would talk about that as gardens or a park. Well, that idea eventually got interchanged with the Garden of Eden, and then paradise became the Garden of Eden. So whenever Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise," that likely means the Garden of Eden. Or he could be talking about Abraham's bosom. That's its own debate. Not the point of this video. The point of this part is, hey, I was wrong in my first video. I don't read the church fathers much, so I didn't really have that in the back of my head whenever I was making it. So it was pointed out to me by Mary Arb that I got that wrong. So I'm saying I got that wrong. The church fathers do write about the Garden of Eden being this heavenly Garden of Eden type place that you rest in and that you dwell in, and it's the Shekinah. But the Christian view and the Rabbinic view are likely overlapping ideas. This is the biggest difference between the Christian position and the Islamic position, or the Jewish Christian, the Judeo-Christian position and the Islamic position, is in the Talmud and in the church father writings, you don't have this type of paradise that you see in the Quran, and it gets very explicitly. So in Berachot 17a, paragraph 12, we get, according to Rav, "The world to come is not like this world. In the world to come, there is no eating, no drinking, no procreation, no business negotiations, no jealousy, no hatred, and no competition. Rather, the uprighteous will sit with their crowns upon their heads, enjoying the splendor of the divine presence." So they'll be basking in the Shekinah. Now that's relevant because that's how the New Testament also describes it. And we also have descriptions of this throughout a lot of the Christians. So the Talmud is like agreeing with the Christian notion of heaven, of live the life to come. Like after the resurrection, we will live physically with God and enjoy the relationship with him. We will be in his presence. Whether or not we eat or drink or sleep or have intercourse, it doesn't really matter. The greatest gift of all will be that we will be in his presence. Islamically, that's just entirely thrown out the window. It is, no, it's all physical pleasures. It's all sensual. Why? we'll get into that, but I do think we know the reason why. That being said, the standard rabbinic position is that there is no intercourse, there's no food, there's none of that. So the Enochian worldview that we went over in the last video with the 4 rivers, that worldview is not agreeing with the standard rabbinic position. So it would be a minority position within the rabbinic position. So the Quran is copying a minority view of the Midrash, of the Aggidic material, and it's taking that as truth, but it's also mixing it with this other mystery source, like, Muhammad cooking up in the kitchen, and he's using Midrash and he's using folklore of a different religion. So we'll get to that at the end of the video. But here I wanted to go through, okay, if he is stealing from the rabbis, what are the possible places he could be stealing from the rabbis from? The only possible ones that I can think of, you have like edge cases, but if he is reading Berachot, which we know he does because he copies from it a lot, so he's either copying from a rabbinic student or a rabbi or the actual book itself. But either way, he's copying from Berachot a lot. Well, in 16b, 17 through 18, we have, and if one does so, recites Shema and prays, the verse says about him, as with fat and marrow, my soul will be satisfied. Not only does he receive this reward, but he inherits 2 worlds, this world and the world to come. May it be your will to dwell in our lot, love and brotherhood, peace and friendship. And may you make our borders rich in disciples and cause us to ultimately succeed, that we will have a great end and hope. And may you set our portion in the Garden of Eden. And may you establish for us a good companion and a good inclination in your world. And it keeps going. It's a part of this prayer of one of the rabbis. Well, if you notice, he talks about how there is a good companion in your world. Well, that is likely indicating this world, that you have a good, faithful wife who follows Torah as well, who helps you procreate, helps you have children, helps you raise the children, takes care of the house, gets ready for Shabbat. Like, there's this whole thing about how, like, the faithful wife and, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and all that type of stuff. I'm not putting down women. There are sections of the Talmud that seem to put down women, but that's an entirely different video, which we'll get to. Either way, the good companions of Berachot 16b is that it is in this world. But if you're sloppily reading that, you could get, oh, well, there's a good companion, and the context of it is also in this life and in the life to come. You might be able to blend those two if you're not very clear on it. Like, oh, well, this actually means that there's good companions in the next world, which will be relevant whenever you tie it into what will come later in the video. Well, also in Berachot 57b, paragraphs 10 through 14, I have a summarized version, but I'll read through them. 3 matters do not enter the body, yet the body benefits from them, and they are washing, anointing, and usage, commonly used as a euphemism for conjugal relations, that's tashmish. 3 matters are microcosms of the world to come, and they are the Sabbath, the sun, and usage, tashmish. The Gemara asks, usage of what benefits the body and is a microcosm of the world to come. What is this thing? If you say that it refers to conjugal relations, which is the common euphemism, doesn't that weaken the body? Well, that's also part of a rabbinic debate. Some rabbis said, no, it strengthens the body if you do it in this way. And then other people say, oh, it weakens the body if you do it in that way. So this Gemara is like, oh, well, that weakens the body. So it's taking that view of the rabbinic debate. Rather, it refers to the usage of one's orifice, pooping. So there's also 3 matters that ease one's mind. They are of voice, sight, and smell. They are pleasant and aesthetic. 3 matters give a person comfort. They are a beautiful abode, a beautiful wife, and a beautiful vessels. So again, it's not talking about the next life, but if you're sloppily reading this, you might be able to see how Muhammad got this idea from it. I think it's pretty weak, mainly because in other passages in Berachot, specifically the one I mentioned earlier, 17a, which is right after the 16b passage, it explicitly says that there is no eating, no drinking, no intercourse in the next life. So you have that. You also have mixed with like 2 Enoch 9, where it talks about how there's the 300 angels who are very bright, who look after paradise with a never ceasing voice and a pleasant singing. They worship the Lord every day, every hour. And then Enoch responds with, how very pleasant is this place? We know that the 4 rivers and the Enochian vision of all the fruit and all that stuff, that's being applied in the Quran. So he might be syncretizing 2 different religions, which I'm going to get to at the end of the video. So keep watching. But here I want to point out, okay, so we know the Garden of Eden is paradise. We know the Garden of Eden is good in the Jewish view, and it is like it's heaven in the Jewish view, and it's heaven in the Islamic view. Well, whenever we look at can intercourse happen in the Garden of Eden, because the Garden of Eden in the Jewish view is split into 2. There's the earthly Garden of Eden, and there is the heavenly Garden of Eden, which is biblical. And in the Islamic view, it's the same thing, as I shown in the first video, that Adam and Eve were in heaven, and they had to be pushed down to earth. Well, here we have in 2 different places in the Talmud and one in the Midrash that there is intercourse, there is happening inside of the Garden of Eden. Let's go through that. In Yevamot 63a5, Rabbi Elazar said, "What is the meaning of that which is written? This is now being bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh." This teaches that Adam had intercourse with each animal and beast in his search for his mate, and his mind was not at ease in accordance in the verse, and for Adam there was not found a helpmate for him, until he had intercourse with Eve. Now this is gross, this is not something that's good, it's not something that's taught by the Bible, but this is one of the interpretations. Now it is agidic, it's not halakha, it's not like, hey, you should go have intercourse with beast, but we have the rabbis not really liking Adam. He was not up on their pedestal. He is constantly besmirched by the rabbis. So this is just another aspect of him being besmirched. They're not endorsing him. But you do have this idea of, and lots of it in paradise. He probably has with tens of thousands of different animals in this view, and then you also have with Eve in the Garden of Eden. Also, apparently it wasn't sin because the fall didn't happen, so doesn't make that much sense, but it is what it is. Anyway, there's also Bereshit Rabbah, so the big book of Genesis, 18:6. So the serpent was cunning. The verse after this one should have said only, the Lord made for Adam and his wife garments, and then Rabbi Yeshua ben Karam said, "It is to inform you what misdeed prompted the evil one, the serpent, to assail them. It is because it saw them engaging in the way of nature in the open, and it lusted for her." So this is teaching that the devil, as the serpent, he saw Adam and Eve having intercourse in the Garden of Eden. It saw the practice, and kind of like if you watch, you can get excited. It got excited, voyeurism on Adam and Eve having intercourse. So the serpent, got hard and wanted to have sex with Eve, so he caused the death of Adam. He caused him to eat the apple, the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in order for him to take the wife of Adam for himself. He wanted to marry Eve and have the snake and Eve be together. Very Japanese type situation. Anyway, the Sanhedrin 38b-2 also has Rabbi Yohanan bar Hanina says, "Daytime is 12 hours long, and the day Adam first was made was divided as follows. In the first hour of the day, his dust was gathered. In the second, an undefined figure was fashioned. In the third, his limbs were extended. In the fourth, the soul was cast into him. In the fifth, he stood on his legs. In the sixth, he called the creatures by name and gave them. In the seventh, Eve was paired with him. In the eighth, they rose to bed, 2, and descended 4, i.e. Cain and Abel were immediately born." So they had and then had 2 kids immediately pop out. That sounds terrifying. But we have Adam and Eve here having intercourse a bunch of times in multiple sources, in multiple sections. So if the idea of, okay, this can happen in paradise, mixed with a very childish understanding of paradise from the Enochian worldview, and mixed with having good companions, beautiful companions, beautiful vessels, beautiful people. Although beautiful vessels is, in the Hebrew, it's more referring to the clothing than it is the bodies. But you do have various rabbis talk about how in paradise, our bodies will be perfected. There'll be nothing wrong with us. So you might be able to combine all of that to get the Islamic view. But again, you're kind of forcing it all together. But if he's getting everything else from rabbis, it would make sense for him to also be able to get this from rabbis. But there's a way clearer and easier source for him to get it from, which we will get to in a little bit. So before that, I want to talk about Houris and Ghilman. Houris are mentioned a lot in the Quran. I'm going to mention a couple of them here. So you have Surah 37, 48, 49. Alongside them will be wide-eyed females, Houris, who focus their gaze on them. They are as if they were hidden eggs, radiant with pure white skin. Also talks about how the ostrich feathers are covering them. So you could be like, oh, these are bird girls. Anyway. You have them in 44, you have them in 52, you have it in 55, so 55, 56, 72, 74. Therein are females beings with whose focus their gaze on only those that they serve. No human or jinn has contacted them before those that they serve. So there is no intercourse before them. It is virgins having with just the men that they are contracted to. They're wed to one guy. They don't have lust for any other person. So they're like the perfect wife. And then you have intercourse with them forever, and they regenerate their virginity every time, which is kind of gross. But they don't pop their cherry every time. So there's no pain in causing in the tafsir. So, and in the hadith. So we have the way the virgins work is you get a bunch of them. There's not an exact number, but you could say 72 if you want. You get a bunch of them. They are all the same age. They have no physical defects. They all have specifically, as Surah 78:31-33 says, and with youthful maidens as companions and full-breasted companions of equal age. So they're all equally ages, and in that exact word, full-breasted is kaib. Kaib is the description. It's not meant to be an erotic. So it's not like me talking about like this really like cheeked up dude. It's not talking about that aspect of it. It's not meant to entice desire. It's meant to be a descriptive of that person's body type. And that word is better defined as budding breast rather than large breasted or fully breasted. And what it's talking about is its little mounds. And in the Ibn Kathir and other tafsir and other commentators, it talks about how the breasts do not sag at all. So there's no fold to the breast. It's just round, perky breasts. Well, that exact description describes a certain age of girl, according to Ibn Kathir and some other commentators. But that's essentially what paradise is. You have these virgins that are perfectly proportioned, according to Muhammad, and they have intercourse with you. They lose their virginity when they have intercourse with you, then they regenerate it, but it never actually hurts. There's no bleeding, there's none of that. It's just, for whatever reason, it's always virgin rather than just like having perpetual niceness to the intercourse. I don't know. It's a weird view. But we have Ibn Kathir talking about this, and he says, karab means round breasts. That mean by this that the breast of these girls will be fully rounded and not sagging. Because they will be virgins equal in age, that means they will only have one age. They will all be exactly the same. Also have the purpose of karaba in verse 78:33 from the wiki is to highlight the woman's youthfulness. Though she is an adult, she has reached the age which she begins to menstruate, and that she is the age of young girls when their breasts are beginning to appear. Well, according to Islam QA.info on their thing on Do the Words of Allah and Full-Breasted Maidens of Equal Age, Waqaib Atrabam described the breast of al-Huri. That thing has a lot of information. It's really good. But we have in their section under Ibn Faris, we may say something similar about describing a woman as kaib in Arabic. It is not intended as an erotic, physical description of any part of the woman's body as much as it is intended as a description of the girl in terms of the emergence of the signs of femininity in her as an indication of her young age and youthfulness, so that men would be attracted to her. At this age, the signs of femininity begin to appear in the girl. The point of using this word is not to describe the size of the breasts or to note their form or shape. Rather, the purpose is to highlight the woman's youthfulness. And Ibn al-Jawiz, or Ibn al-Jazi, said the woman is a tifla, a little girl when she is small, walida, when she begins to walk, then a kaib, when her breasts begin to appear, then nahid, when they increase in size, then masar, when she reaches the age of puberty, then a qad, when she reaches the age of a young woman. So a kaib specifically is a woman whose breasts begin to bud. These are not fully breasted. These are not like large anime boobies. These are specifically small mounded, non-perking, no fold. In the age development chart for women, the Tanner stages, this defines a Tanner stage 2 woman. A woman begins to create folds and actually have a rounded breast whenever they reach Tanner stage 4 and 5. Well, Tanner stage 2 is ages 9 to 11. So Muhammad is describing the Houris as women who are fully mature, they've gone through menstruation, yet their physical appearance is that of a 9-year-old to an 11-year-old.
So they're saying there is a 17-year-old girl, 17-year-old woman.
They are prepubescent looking, even though they've undergone puberty and they can have safe intercourse. But you're still having intercourse with a girl who looks like a girl. You are doing them. So, in Islam, the perfect robots in paradise are specifically little girls who are matured women but still look like little girls that are virgins that you have with, that then regenerate their virginity every day. And you do this forever while getting drunk. You're drinking wine, you're drinking milk, you're drinking honey, and eating fruit of all kinds. It's a blend of all these things, but you have specifically, why the Tanner stage 2 development women? Why not fully breasted women? Because Muhammad's favorite wife was the age of 9 whenever he first had sex with her. He probably enjoyed that so much, he canonized it in their afterlife. Think about that. He enjoyed little girls so much that he made heaven a paradise. But it's worse than that because of Ghilman. Ghilman in Surah 52:24, they will circulate among them Ghilman for them as if they were pearls well protected. The word Ghilman in the plural of Golam, meaning boys or young male servants. And in Surah 56:17, there will circulate among them boys made eternal. Wildan Mukalada, whatever. And Surah 76:19, we also have, and then around them will be youths, never altering in age. When thou seest, thou wilt think them to be scattered pearls. These are the boys of paradise. So if you get tiring of having with all of the little girls, you can instead have all of the little boys that are attending to you. Now, some of the Muslims are like, oh, well, no, it's just like these are little mini angels that are beautiful. You would think them as scattered pearls. And then they will bring you food, and then they will feed you while you're having with your little girls. But we don't really see that. We see, hey, both are acceptable. We see in the tafsir, hey, both are acceptable to be used in that way. So whenever he's like preaching to the pagans that are practicing boy love, this could be a way to convince them to join Islam. Like, hey, you go out, you kill all the people with me right now, I will give you eternal boys to have with in paradise. So, where is Muhammad actually getting this? Because all of this doesn't really sound like the Jewish sources. Where is Muhammad actually getting this? And I think it's a blend, it's a syncretism between the Rabbinic position, the Enochian view, and the Zoroastrian position. Specifically, we get from Anna Davita, I'm going to butcher this name, Anna Davitashvili. So she's a doctor, professor, at the University of Tübingen, however you say that. She is doing work on specifically where do the Houris of Paradise come from. In her work, she pointed out a bunch of different places, and these are two of the most likely places from the Zoroastrian sources that Muhammad is pulling from. Again, I cannot pronounce these words, I don't speak Persian. The Hadochut Nask, chapter 2, 8 through 9, it says, and it seems to the soul of the faithful one as if he were inhaling the wind with nostrils, and he thinks, whence does that wind blow, the sweetest scented wind I had ever inhaled in my nostrils? And it seems to him as if his own conscience were advancing to him in that wind, in the shape of a maiden, fair, bright, white-armed, strong, tall-formed, high-standing, thick-breasted, beautiful of body, noble and of glorious seed, of the size of a maiden in her 15th year, as fair as the fairest things in the world. So here it's a little bit older. If you want to say that, oh, well, the budding breasts are actually full-breasted, and it's still coming from this source, and this source puts it at 15. Not quite as 9, but still not fully mature. So this is, again, still the idealized woman in the Zoroastrian sense was a 15-year-old fully matured girl. So we also get in Arda Ziraf, chapter 4, 18 through 22, and there stood before him of his own religion and his own deeds in the graceful form of a damsel, as a beautiful appearance that is grown up in virtue, with prominent breasts, that is, her breasts swelled downward, so she's in at least Tanner stage 4, and which is charming to the heart and soul, whose form was as brilliant as the sight of it was more pleasing, more well-pleasing, the observation of it more desirable. So now these are desirable looking women. It's not just a physical description, but it's a lustful, enticing description. And the soul of the pious asked that damsel, thus, who are you? And what person are you? Then whom in the world of the living any damsel more elegant and more beautiful body than thine was never seen by me? So he's like, who are you? You're the hottest woman I've ever seen, even though she looks like a 15-year-old. And Anna, in her research, she demonstrated that the Quranic descriptions of Houris employ terminology that is familiar from pre-Islamic Arabic poetry. So she makes the claim that the Arabian poetry that's pre-Islamic has this aspect of the Houris that are coming from the Zoroastrian sources. The terms used to describe Houris, Kahala, for dark eyes, full-breasted, pale-skinned, all appear in pre-Islamic poetry describing idealized, beautiful women. Importantly, the pre-Islamic concept of Hur Alain, beautiful, wide-eyed women, was already established in Arabian poetry, though applied to earthly women and as a metaphorical battle rewards. So they are like, hey, if you go to battle, you could like get these incredibly beautiful women if you go conquer lands. But we have the Zoroastrian and we have the Rabbinic smashed together. You have the Enochian view of the four rivers, of the fruits, of possibly the angels and good companions attending to you, and you have the personification of those companions in these year-old, full-breasted, beautiful, tall, great stature women, girls, who are then made into the companions. Then you get thrown in some gayness for good measure. All of that together, you get the Islamic view of the afterlife. So All that being said, that's a lot. Let's grade these things. So for my final grading for the Garden of Eden sections, the Garden of Eden being heaven, being where Adam and Eve were in heaven, all that stuff is Sahih. There's a little bit of a caveat that, hey, like the Christians and Jews were largely writing about this. It wasn't just the rabbis, and it seems to be more biblical than what I had previously mentioned in the first video. I still think it's Sahih. The 4 rivers being in paradise, being made of the wine, milk, honey, and oil / water, that is definitely Sahih, just straight ripped that. The idea of fruit being in the garden is Sahih. And the idea of Houris, the idea of companions in paradise, is for sure Daif, but it is still Sahih from the Zoroastrians. So however you want to mix that, it's not original to Muhammad. What is original to Muhammad is that they were children, and that there's children like mixed into it. That is all Muhammad. I'm not going to say any other religion had that, because I can't find anything that does. It's only Islam where is promoted to such an extent. So what is the current count that we're up to? Well, all of the ayahs so far that we looked at in the last video, and with these ayah being mixed in, because there's around 356 ayah about paradise that are rabbinic in the Quran. If you add all of that together, we are up to 1,461 ayah out of 6,236 ayah in the Quran that are rabbinic so far. That brings us up to a grand total of 23.43% of the Quran is Jewish. And it's only going to increase, especially whenever I throw in all the Zoroastrian stuff, because there's a lot of Zoroastrian stuff in the Islam, which is why I believe there is a hadith or a tafsir that says that whenever he went to the Zoroastrians, he allowed them to be called people of the book or something along those lines. That's going to be its own video too. Moral of the story, Jannah, stolen from the Jews and the Zoroastrians. And it is gross. I don't know why you would defend it. I don't know why you'd want to live in it. You're essentially forever in it. There's a better way. There's a better heaven that's not marrying little girls for eternity. Come to Christ. It's better over here. The Bible's better. So, may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit with you always. Goodbye.